Robin, and welcome to not really a scheduled video at all, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing this because I fell down a little bit on videos last week, and I want to get this video out before I wanted to get it recorded while it was fresh in my mind still. I was thinking about doing it on Film Talk this week, but I've just decided I'm going to do it now because I fell down on videos this week. My Batman vs Superman: The Dawn of Justice review. Now I'm going to be doing this in a pros and cons point system. I saw this film yesterday, and I'm going to say this right now, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot different to how I thought it was going to play out. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I enjoyed it regardless of how it was different. That being said, there was a lot wrong with it. I say a lot. There were some big things that I think should have been done differently. So I'm going to do a pros and cons system up in the corners here. Pros is going to go there, cons is going to go there. Not really in camera. Pros and cons. Pros, cons. And we'll count them up at the end and see what happens with that. Okay, so first things first, the casting. The casting was phenomenal. And I'm talking, obviously, the casting of the characters. I always knew Ben Affleck was going to be a great Batman. You know, so many people were so they had it set in their heads that he was going to do an awful job of Batman. I always knew he was going to be great as Batman, and watching him on screen as Batman was really nice to see that I was right, I guess. That sounds really big-headed of me. It was really nice to see that people that doubted him were going to be proved wrong quite badly. He also played a fantastic Bruce Wayne. Now, Ben Affleck's Batman is obviously, it's not a origin story anymore. He is an older Batman. He is 20 years into the business of being Batman now. He is a lot shadier. He's a lot more pissed off with everything. He is a lot kind of darker in how he does things. And I always knew he was going to be cast. He was cast right. And it was really nice to see that he embraced the role as he did, but he didn't make a big deal out of the fact that he was a new Batman, and that's something that I really enjoyed about the film. Is, yes, it's a big deal that there's another actor playing Batman, but it didn't come across that way in the film. It felt like he was in that role because he was supposed to be there, and it didn't feel like he was over-exaggerating anything. He was just, he did a really good job, and it was really nice to see him take on the role and fully embrace it, and, you know, straight off the bat, because everyone knows there was a lot of pressure on Ben Affleck to be good, and he not only was he good, but he exceeded a lot of people's expectations because he didn't take it for granted. He did the best he could, and it was fantastic, and he didn't oversell it. And that is the best thing about it. He didn't oversell the fact that he was Batman, because it's such a big role to play, and it was just really well done. And as you guys know, if you'd watched my previous Batman vs Superman videos, you guys know I would have had I had a bit of a bad thought in my head of, is Batman gonna outsell Superman? And I thought Superman should have had like another film in between or something, considering he's only just got to a good place with Henry Cavill. But he really, really did a great job of just embracing it and not overdoing it, and it was really nice to see that happened. Henry Cavill obviously has been cast as Superman as of Man of Steel, and I want to make this very clear: this Man of Steel is actually the first film in this Justice League story. So if you're going to watch Batman vs Superman, then make sure you watch Man of Steel first. Now, I'm going to say from here on, because I should have said it at the beginning and I completely forgot, if you are scared of spoilers or you haven't seen it, don't watch this video, because it is going to be spoiler fanatic in a big way. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, then just by all means turn the video off until you've seen it and then come back and watch it or whatever. So yeah, just a spoiler alert warning there. I should have done that at the beginning. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. So yeah, Henry Cavill as Superman, he has really grown into the role now. I mean, like with Ben Affleck, when he made Man of Steel, he was taking on this massive role as Superman being the head of the Justice League. He was taking on this massive role as Superman, and there was a lot of light on him that didn't cause him to make a bad film in Man of Steel. Man of Steel was a fantastic film and he did a great job, but it feels like he's more settled in the role now, that he's kind of got this path that he knows he's going to take through the Justice League cinematic universe, and because of that I think he's settled into the role a lot better, and his performance was tenfold better than it was in Man of Steel. Again, not saying it was bad in Man of Steel, but it was even better in this film. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Again, she was cast brilliantly. I'm going to talk a little bit more about her in a minute, in another point, but she was cast brilliantly. I loved Wonder Woman's suit. I really am liking the suits that they are putting forward in the Justice League cinematic universe, because they're not cheesy, they are armoured suits. You know, they're proper kind of, they're superhero suits obviously, but they're proper like armour protection suits, and that's really nice to see, because a lot of people were worried, being one of them, that the Wonder Woman suit was going to be taken a little bit out of context compared to how the other suits were. So it was really cool to see that. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. It was a very different take on Lex Luthor, actually. The way it played out isn't how it normally plays out. But that's not a bad thing in any means. He played it really well. He played a more unhinged, younger Lex Luthor, and he was kind of Joker-esque. I think he would have made a good Joker, actually. He was completely batshit crazy, and it worked out really well. It worked with the dynamic of how things were playing out, because everything was kind of light-hearted with the dark side, and that was the main theme of the film. And Lex Luthor as just the person was batshit crazy, and obviously obviously if you haven't seen it then you wouldn't know, but he transforms into the bald-headed Lex Luthor at the end of the film. So that was done really well. So as far as casting goes for main characters, absolutely going in the pro corner. Absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed every single character's kind of development in the film, and I really liked how they all worked together at the end of the film. It did feel like the Justice League was coming together, which is fantastic. And I'm going to talk about another character quickly in another point here. Doomsday. Now, this is probably going to cover 2 points, and it's a bit bad because it's probably going to give us 2 cons, but Doomsday was announced as endgame villain for this film in the trailers, in the more recent trailers, actually, but a few months back. And when you know Doomsday is going to be a villain in a film where Superman is involved, you know bad things are going to happen with Superman. And Doomsday is such a big character that I feel like he didn't get enough screen time, and he wasn't, you know, his character was brilliant, but I feel like for this film it wasn't right for him to be there. I really liked the development between Lex Luthor transforming, I'll get my words out eventually, transforming General Zod to Doomsday. I really liked that whole thing, but I feel like that should have been reserved for a separate Man of Steel film. It wasn't anything to do with Batman, it wasn't anything to do with Wonder Woman. Doomsday primarily is a Superman villain, as is Lex Luthor, and for that reason, and for the reason that Doomsday was an underwhelming endgame villain because of the trailers, they released him as an endgame villain too quickly. And I'm not saying that he was a bad villain, but because he was released too quickly and it made his appearance in the film very underwhelming, because of that I'm going to have to go and give them a con. Right there. Get my finger in the screen. Right there. Con. And now this is going to be another one. Because of Doomsday's presence, Superman had to die, and he does. He dies in the film. that's not settled that he is officially dead and out of the Justice League, you know, cinematic universe. He comes back, and that's made clear at the end of the film when the ground starts to like rumble around his coffin or whatever. I think that was a really weak move on the part of DC, actually. And again, I feel like that was something that should have been kept to a separate Superman film, because this film is called The Dawn of Justice. It's about creating the Justice League, yeah? Why the hell would you have a film that is basically a prequel to creating the Justice League? Why would you end it on the leader of the Justice League dying? They had to do it. They had to do it, and there's going to be a couple more pros and cons thrown into this point. They had to do it because Doomsday was there. Okay? If Doomsday is there, Doomsday kills Superman. That's just how it is. So, to be quite honest, pro for sticking to the strict comic book storyline, you know? They did it. They shouldn't have done it, but they did it. They stuck to the strict comic book storyline. So yeah, they can get a pro for that, because there are going to be comic book nerds that go, if Superman doesn't die, then you've done it wrong. Okay, so pro for that. But con, again, did I give him a con for Superman dying? I'll give him a con for Superman dying if I haven't already. And con again, because that comic book story was not right for this film. Yeah? If you are trying to build up the tension and build up this team of superheroes that is going to be the Justice League, why the hell are you killing off the head member of the Justice League? It should have been kept to a separate Superman film, and I completely and utterly am staying faithful to that point, because it just seemed like it is completely irrelevant to how the rest of the story is going to play out. And it caused Bruce Wayne to... It didn't cause Bruce Wayne, but now Bruce Wayne as Batman wants to go and find these other metahumans. And that's going to be another pro. No, that's wrong hand. Pro. It's going to be another pro, because the metahumans that they introduced were introduced very well. And when I heard that the Flash and Aquaman and all that kind of thing were gonna make an appearance in this film, it went through my head is, why are they gonna overcrowd this film with everyone that's gonna be in the Justice League when it's about the Justice League forming? And I was really worried about that. But they actually did it really well. They only had about a 3-second cameo each, and it was in the form of a CCTV camera in their separate worlds kind of thing. So that was actually done really well. So pro for that, for introducing the other members of the Justice League really subtly, but making it very clear that they are going to be joining us in the future. But why would you have all of that set up and then kill Superman? It seems really irrelevant, because everybody knows he's going to come back. He has to come back. So I felt like it took away the emotional punch to the heart that it should have had. You know, Superman's dead. Holy shit. You didn't feel like that, because you knew he was going to have to come back, and they pretty much confirmed it at the end of it with the whole coffin shake thing. And it was just like, it felt like it was a completely irrelevant thing to happen. If they were going to do that, they should have done that in a Man of Steel film before doing this film. I think the Man of Steel films, like Superman as Man of Steel, hasn't had enough development in itself just yet. You know, the beginning of this film, I mean, I'm going to give them another pro right here. Pro for continuation from Man of Steel. This film is technically the second in the DC universe, DC cinematic universe, Man of Steel being the first. The beginning of this film is literally a continuation of the very end of Man of Steel, and we see Bruce Wayne in Metropolis as he looks on at Superman taking down General Zod's plans, and that kind of sparks the rivalry between Batman Batman and Superman, in that Bruce Wayne wants to take down Superman because he took down his building and killed a load of employers. So that's what sparks that, and then Superman obviously learns of Batman and he wants to take him down because he's being made to look like the bad guy because he's being set up by Lex Luthor. And at the end of it, it's kind of Lex Luthor and Batman, Lex Luthor setting up Superman and Batman to hate on each other, and only one of them can win. And of course, both of them win. But again, that's something we all knew was going to happen because the Justice League was going to happen. So both of them had to survive, and that's another thing because they have to both be there for the Justice League to be relevant. So I don't know what they were thinking when they thought of using Doomsday as their main villain at the end there. I don't know what was going through their heads, and I think he would have been a great villain for a Superman film, I really do. And the way he was portrayed on screen is fantastic. I haven't got a problem with him in the way that he was portrayed. I have a problem with the fact that he was just there. The fact that he was there is a problem for me because it means Superman has to die, and that's a completely irrelevant thing to happen in this stage. You know, it's the very beginning of this DC cinematic universe. Why have they killed off Superman when everyone knows he's going to come back? It doesn't sit right with me because I feel like there should have been a lot more emotion behind it, but you can't have that emotion behind it because you know he's going to come back, so you lose a lot of it. So, you know, as far as following a strict, you know, it's a tough decision. It would have been a tough decision because they obviously really wanted Doomsday, and then you've got these two types of fans as far as comic book fans go. You've got the type of fan that I am that understands that every film adaptation of a book, or comic book in this case, has to differ in some way. And then you've got the other type of comic book fan where they think that if they're going to do a film adaptation of a comic book, then it has to be completely and utterly not word for word, but completely and utterly true to the story. So either way, they were going to be disappointing someone, and this film is very much a comic book person's film. It's not a film person's film. And it was kind of like, either way, one of these groups is going to be disappointed, but at the end of the day, it's a film. It's not a comic book, it is a film. And I think they picked the wrong group of people to try and please, actually. You know, props to them for trying to keep it true to this comic book storyline, but it wasn't a storyline that worked on film, especially at this stage of building up a cinematic universe. But you know, that being said, it was still a really good film. You know, the opening sequence, I had shivers, and you know, they didn't make a big deal out of the whole Bruce Wayne as a kid losing his parents thing. It was kind of like merged in with the whole Superman trying to protect Metropolis but General Zod taking it down situation. It was all kind of merged in together there, and it worked really well because it was Bruce Wayne in Metropolis trying to find his, trying to fight for his company workers, and he's kind of like having flashbacks to when his parents died, and it worked really well. The opening scene was amazing, and you know, it didn't dip until right at the end in the quality of the film. You know, the action sequences, you know, in fact, I'm going to give them a pro for the opening sequence, because I'm going to give them a pro point because it was a fantastic way to open the film. Now, this film in itself is very slow. There weren't many action sequences, and for that I'm going to give them another pro, because it is very easy to get lost in a Batman and Superman film and say that the quality is based on the action sequences. It's not. You watch a Batman film, and if you're not a fan of the comic books, or you're just watching it because it's an action film, yeah, you're probably going to say that it was great because of the action sequences. There weren't many action sequences in this film, and I really liked that, actually. It did mean that there wasn't much time for them as superheroes, like Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, and all the other superheroes. Their superhero alter egos didn't actually get much screen time. Wonder Woman should have got more screen time than she should have. But it was really nice to see them interact as their human selves, as their people selves that people know them as. Because of that, there wasn't many action sequences, but the action sequences they did have were perfected to the point that it was like playing one of the Arkham games. And, you know, Rocksteady have got this, when you played an Arkham game, Arkham Knight, I'll say about Arkham Knight, Rocksteady have got this solid formula when they're making a Batman game as to how the combat should go, and it felt like you were kind of watching a combat sequence in one of the Arkham games. And it was really cool to see that, actually, especially with the whole kind of Batman jumping to and from buildings with his grapple gun and things like that. You didn't see much of them as their superhero characters, and that's not a problem, because, again, this film was about the start of something, and by the end of it, you see them, all three of them there together, and it worked. It worked really well that all three of them were there fighting against Doomsday. And, like I say, Wonder Woman didn't get enough screen time, but the way she did perform in the film was fantastic. So, I think it's a good thing that they kind of, like, introduce their human selves more than their superhero selves more for this film, because as of now we've got a Justice League film coming up to us that is going to be 100% about them being superheroes. And it was good to see a glimpse of them as actual people before all that happened, to kind of get them to connect as actual people instead of superheroes, because you need that human connection. If you're gonna join a frickin' superhero Justice League thing, you need to have that human connection. So it was good to see them have that in the film. The film itself was actually 2.5 hours long. It didn't feel like that at all, and considering how slow things moved, it was really strange that it didn't feel like a drag-on film. It was quite a slow film, but again, that's because we're seeing these superheroes that we know so well as the superheroes interacting as people, and that works really well. So yeah, you know, overall it was good. I did really like it. It didn't play out how I thought it was going to play out at all. It didn't. I didn't expect either Batman or Superman to die. I thought it was just going to be them two coming together to fight a bigger evil, which is what it was, but I didn't expect either of them to die this early on. Especially in the knowledge that they're, you know, it's a tough one, because if we didn't know there was a Justice League film coming out, and this film wasn't called Dawn of Justice, Superman's death would have worked. It would have worked absolutely perfectly, but we know too much about the future of the Justice League universe in cinema for it to work, and that's a tough break, because if we didn't know there was going to be a Justice League film coming out, it would have worked absolutely perfectly. And that's a tough break on DC, because I can imagine it working really well in so many other scenarios. And I think they put it in the wrong film, which is a shame. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the rest of the film was really, really quite phenomenal. Soundtrack again was made by Hans Zimmer, which is incredible. Christopher Nolan did have some kind of like directorial input in there for some parts of it, which is really nice to see. This universe of DC heroes is going to be the universe of DC heroes that makes DC either fall or rise. This generation of superheroes that we have right now is what's going to make DC cinema be the best or be the worst. Because I've always preferred the stories of DC cinema, of DC comics, because they've always been a little bit darker. I think the Dark Knight trilogy was too realistic, but this has got that realism as well as the comic book aspect to it. Comic book aspect to it, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing. I don't know for sure whether the Suicide Squad is going to be involved in this same universe. I don't know whether that's a thing that's going to happen or not. I would love to see Ben Affleck and Jared Leto do a Batman and Joker film together. I think they would be absolutely fantastic. I think that would be something that I would watch over and over again. But as far as Batman vs Superman goes, it had more pros than cons. It did have more pros than cons. Unfortunately, the cons that it did have were quite big, but that doesn't mean it was a bad film. It was a really, really good film. I think they just got some of the kind of... I think they got their stories mixed up a little bit. And, you know, it's great to see a comic book fan working on these films. Zack Snyder is a massive comic book fan. It's great to see a comic book fan working on these films. But that kind of... As much as it's a good thing, it kind of makes me think, is he going to not take into account that a film has to be adapted from a book, and it can't be word for word perfect, it can't be completely storyline accurate, it can't be, because it just doesn't work, and in this case it hasn't, and I'm hoping he's going to learn from that. Obviously we know Superman's going to be back, and you know, it's a shame that it didn't hit us as hard as it could have done. It's a shame it didn't hit us as hard as it could have done. I mean, I was still almost tearing up because of how they made it look on screen, but in the back of my head, I was just there like, well, he's going to be back because there's a Justice League film. So, whatever. But, you know, it was still a great film. Overall, like I say, there's more pros to it than cons. The actual film as a whole thing, if I'm not taking apart the nitty-gritties, like I have been, the actual film as a whole thing was fantastic. I loved the little nods that it had to the Dark Knight Returns comic books and things like that. I loved the introduction of the other members of Justice League, like I said. I loved the introduction of all of the different characters. I think this is a people's film. This isn't a superhero film. This is a people's film. And I like the idea of the members of the Justice League connecting as people before they connect as superheroes. I think that was done really, really well. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, more pros than cons. It was still a great film. I am going to give it an 8 out of 10 because overall, as a film, if you were like, it's tough to say if you weren't a comic book fan, then it'd be amazing. But it's mainly going to be comic book fans that are going to go and watch this. So it is a shame that it's in the place where it's at. But as a film as a whole, it is. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It is a fantastic film. I'd recommend it if you haven't gone to see it. I'd recommend you go and see it. Even though you know what's going to happen point for point now, if you've watched this film and you haven't seen it. Watch this video and you haven't seen it. But yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think the film is fantastic. I am going to go and watch it again. And I'm looking forward to seeing the director's cut, because apparently there's going to be an R-rated director's cut, so I'm looking forward to seeing that when that comes out on Blu-ray. And yeah, the film as a film is fantastic. I think the story just went a little bit haywire towards the end. They maybe didn't get some of the villains right, and you know, I can't say that I want to give them too much of a hard time, because at the end of the day, their rivals are Marvel, and Marvel are leading the cinematic universe as far as superhero goes, and they have been for years. And you know, I worry that DC are going to rush things in their attempt to kind of make up for time that Marvel have already gained. I worry that that's what's going to happen, but I have faith that they are going to do a good job, because at the end of the day, they didn't do a bad job with this film. The film is great. It's a great film. I just think that there were stories in there that shouldn't have been, and there should have been kind of like there should have been another Man of Steel film before. If they wanted to have the Doomsday element, that's where that should have been. But you know, it was great that they had it either way. And like I say, had we not known that Justice League is going to be an upcoming film in the next couple of years, then Superman's death would have hit us a lot harder. But unfortunately, we do know, and you know, it's kind of, it makes it a little bit irrelevant. But again, props to them for keeping to a strict comic book storyline, because that's not easy. You know, it's not easy. There was 2 groups that they had to please, and they could only please one of them. So, you know, at the end of the day, it is a comic book film. So if they want to side with the people that are going to be very strict to comic book law, then they have every right to. You know, it was a tough... I imagine they had to make a lot of tough choices, and, you know, it's like I say, it's not a bad film. It's actually one of the best films I've ever seen. But there are a lot of problems. There's not a lot of problems. I've got to keep saying that. There are things that should have been done differently, but that does not mean it's a bad film. It's still one of the best films I've seen in a long time, and I am going to go and see it again, and again, probably again and again. So I want to hear what your thoughts are on Batman vs Superman in the comments below if you've seen it. As far as pros and cons go, like I say, pros won. I want to know what your thoughts are on that. I want to know what your thoughts are on what I've said as well. And if you have any questions about it that you think I can answer, then again, put them in the comments below. That's going to be it from me for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this little extra video for today. Hopefully I'll be back on schedule with things by the end of this week. And yeah, make sure you keep an eye out for the rest of the videos that are coming out on the channel this week. And until the next time you hear from me, guys, as always, stay classy, gamers.